Japan is an archipelago or string of islands on the eastern edge of Asia. History of Japan. Kyoto. Traditionally, the home of the emperor is considered the capital. From 794 through 1868, the emperor lived in Heian-ku, modern-day Kyoto. After 1868, the seat of the government of Japan and the location of the emperor's home was moved to Edo, which it renamed Tokyo. Japan was settled about 35 years ago by Paleolithic people from the Asian mainland. At the end of the last ice age, about 10,000 years ago, a culture called the Jumon developed. Jumon hunter-gatherers fashioned fur clothing, wooden houses, and elaborate clay vessels. For further explanation, the first human inhabitants of the Japanese archipelago have been traced to the Paleolithic around 38 to 39 years ago. The Jumon period, named after its cord mark pottery, was followed by the Yayoi period in the first millennium BC, when new inventions were introduced from Asia. What is the unique culture of Japan? Japanese people always display modesty and humility. People often bow to convey the message, I am not above you, I respect you. Bowing longer with a higher degree of angle means more respect. This means that bowing is the Japanese way of greeting. It is an essential part of Japanese culture. Besides greeting, it is also a way to show respect and to express deep gratitude. Japanese people have two religions at the same time. They are both Buddhist and Shintoist. Many characteristics of Japan. Japan is the only country in the world with a reigning emperor. Emperors have no real power, but they are still revered as a symbol of the country's traditions and unity. This means that Japan is the only country that currently has an emperor, as its monarch is Japan. Emperor Akito began his reign on January 7, 1989. The monarchy in Japan is the world's longest ruling monarchy.
Cultural importance of literature. History of Japanese literature. Japanese literature span a period of almost 2 millennia writing. Writing are influenced by Chinese literature. Japanese are generally based on important in political and cultural events. Japanese literature can be divided into four periods, which are ancient, classical, medieval, and modern. In modern literature, there are two, early modern and modern literature. In ancient literature, they don't have their own writing system. Chinese characters were further adapted. The earliest works were created in the Nara period, which are Kojiki, Nihonshoki, and Manyushu. Kojiki and Nihonshoki are ancient Japanese texts that serve as historical and mythological records. Kojiki, compiled in early 8th century, focuses on mythological origin of Japan and its imperial family. Nihonshoki, completed in the 8th century, provides a more detailed historical account covering events up to that time. Manusha, on the other hand, is an anthology of poetry compiled around the 8th century. It contains a diverse collections of poems reflecting various aspects of life, love, and nature, offering insight into the cultural and emotional landscape of ancient Japan. Urashima Taro has been identified as the earliest example of a story involving time travel.
So I am the reporter for classical literature. First of all, what is classical literature? Classical Japanese literature usually refers to a literature produced during the Heian period. Some consider this period a golden era of one art and literature. The example for classical Japanese literature is The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikobu. It is considered the greatest fiction masterpiece from this period. The first topic for classical Japanese literature is Eroha. one of two standard orderings for Japanese syllabary. The word iroha, often used in katanaka, itself can mean the basics in Japanese, comparable to the term the ABCs in English. The next is Taketori Monogatari. It is a story of a moon princess who found in shining bamboo stalk and brought up by a bamboo cutter and his wife. The next is Konjaku Monogatari Sho. It's the largest collection of stories in Japan. It consists stories in three parts of the world: India, China, and Japan. Namely, all the world than Japanese could imagine. The next literature is medieval literature. Work from this period is notable for its insight into life and death, simple lifestyle, and redemption through killing. Medieval Japanese literature is most often associated with members of warriors class, religious figures, and hermits, but nobility maintained a degree of their former prestige and occupied an important position in literary circle. The first topic for medieval literature is the Tale of Heike. The Tale of Heike recounts the struggle for power between Taira or Heike and Minamoto for Genji. Houses in late 25th century with a Taira's defeat in 1185 and the establishment of a new warrior government by victorious Minamoto, the medieval age began. Other important tales: Daokoji by Kamono Chomei, often translated as An Account of My Hut. It is a series of social and natural calamities surrounding the fall of Heian court rule and the rise of shogunate military classes. The next is Churezu Regusa. It's an essay made by Yoshida Kenko, and it is an eccentric, sentient, and gem-like assembly of his thought on life, death, weather, manner, aesthetic, nature, drinking, conversational bores, house design, and the beauties of understatement and imperfection. Other notable genre: First, Renga is a genre of Japanese collaborative with poetry, which alternative stanzas or ku. Example is 575 and 77 per line are linked in succession by multiple poets. The next is No. No is the oldest surviving form of Japanese theater. It combines music, dance, acting to communicate Buddhist theme. Often the plot of No play recreates famous scenes from well-known works of Japanese literature such as Tale of Genji or Tale of the Heike.
The next is the modern literature of 1868 to 1945. Ichiyo Higuchi, a rare female writer in this era, wrote short stories on powerless women of this age in a simple style in between literary and colloquial. Kyoka Izumi pursued a flowing and elegant style, wrote early novels such as The Operating Room, 1895, and Literary Style, and later including The Holy Man of Mount Koya of 1990s, and colloquial. Early modern literature, 1603 to 1868. Many genres of literature made their debut during the Edo period. There are outside influences trickled during this period. Minor Western influences from the Dutch settlement of Nagasaki. Chinese vernacular fiction, greatest outside influence of the development of early modern fiction. Early modern literature introduces English readers to an unprecedented range of prose fiction genres, including Dagibon, satiric sermons, Kibyushi, satiric and didactic picture, book, Sharibon, books of wit and fashion, Yumihun, reading books, Kokibun, books of humor, Gokan, bound books, and Ninjibun, books of romance and sentiments. The anthology also offers a rich array of poetry, waka, haiku, senro, kyaka, kyushi, and 11 plays, which range from contemporary domestic drama to historical plays, and from early puppet theater to 19th century kabuki. Since much of early modern Japanese literature is highly allusive and often elliptical, this anthology features introductions and commentary that provide the critical context for appreciating this diverse and fascinating body of text. Example of early modern literature is the novel The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu. The Tale of Genji is widely agreed to be the finest work of literature in Japanese history, so much so that ukiyo-e artists of the Edo period dedicated their lives to painting visual recreations of scenes from Shikibu's novels in woodblock prints. Modern literature. The Meiji period marks the reopening of Japan to the West, a period of rapid industrialization. The introduction of European literature brought free verse into the poetic repertoire. It became widely used for longer works embodying new intellectual themes. Young Japanese prose writers and dramatists struggle with a whole galaxy of new ideas and artistic schools. A new colloquial literature development centering on the I novel, with some unusual protagonists. An example is Wagahay Wani ko di Araw, which means I am a cat by Natsumi Susiki. Example of modern literature is the novel Ukigumu by Futabati Shimi. Ukigumu, or The Drifting Clouds, novel by Futabati Shimi, published in 1887 to 1889. It was published in 3 parts. At first under the name of the author's more famous friend, Tsubuchi Shoyu. It was published in English as Japan's first modern novel, Ukigumu of Futabati Shimi.
My Lord Bago Bryce is a Japanese fairy tales from G. Theodore Ozaki's collection of Japanese folklore titled Japanese Fairy Tale, published in 1903. This story revolves around a young man named Hida Soto who embarks on a quest to defeat a giant centipede that terrorizes a village. Hida Soto, a brave and skilled archer, hears about a village plagued by a giant centipede. The villagers, desperate for help, promise a rich reward to anyone who vanquishes the monstrous creature. Hida Soto, seeking adventure and motivated by a desire to help others, decided to take on the challenge. As Hida Soto approaches the centipede's lair, he encounters a monstrous old man who warns him about the beastly deadly venom. However, Hida Soto remains determined and proceeds with his quest. Armed with his bow and arrows, he faces the giant centipede in a first battle. With great skill and precision, Hida Soto shoots arrow at the centipede, eventually defeating it and saving the village. True to their promise, the grateful villagers offer him a reward. Surprisingly, Hidasato requests only a bag of rice, expressing his humility and lack of materialistic desires. Later, it is revealed that the old woman who warned Hidasato was actually a deity in disguise. He was testing the young man's character. Impressed by Hidasato's selflessness and humility, the deity rewards him with not just a bag of rice but a magical bag that produces an endless supply of rice whenever needed. The tales carry a theme of bravery, selfishness, and humility, emphasizing the voice of virtue.
Japanese Fairy Tales. My Lord Bag o' Rice. Told in English by H. Chamberlain. Published by T. Hasegawa. Read by number 1 Marmaduke fan. The text of this book is in the public domain. Once upon a time, there was a brave warrior called My Lord Bag o' Rice, who spent all his time in waging war against the king's enemies. One day, when he had sallied forth to seek adventures, he came to an immensely long bridge spanning a river just at the place where it flowed out of a fine lake. When he set foot on this bridge, he saw that a serpent 20 feet long was lying there, basking in the sun, in such a way that he could not cross the bridge without treading on it. Most men would have taken to their heels at so frightful a sight, but my Lord Bag o' Rice was not to be daunted. He simply walked right ahead, squash, scrunch, over the serpent's body. Instantly the serpent turned into a tiny dwarf, who, humbly bowing the knee, and knocking the planks of the bridge 3 times with his head in token of respect, said, My lord, you are a man, you are. For many a weary day have I lain here, waiting for one who should avenge me on my enemy, but all who saw me were cowards and ran away. You will avenge me, will you not? I live at the bottom of this lake, and my enemy is a centipede, who dwells at the top of yonder mountain. Come along with me, I beseech you. If you help me not, I am undone. The warrior was delighted at having found such an adventure as this. He willingly followed the dwarf to his summer house beneath the waters of the lake. It was all curiously built of coral and metal sprays in the shape of seaweed and other water plants, with freshwater crabs as big as men, and water monkeys and newts and tadpoles as servants and bodyguards. When they had rested a while, dinner was brought in on trays shaped like the leaves of water lilies. The dishes were watercress leaves, not real ones, but much more beautiful than real ones, for they were of water-green porcelain with a shimmer of gold, and the chopsticks were of beautiful petrified wood like black ivory. As for the wine in the cups, it looked like water, but as it tasted all right, what did its look signify? Well, there they were, feasting and singing, and the dwarf had just pledged the warrior in a goblet of hot steaming wine, when thud, 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 like the tramp of an army, the fearful monster of whom the dwarf had spoken was heard approaching. It sounded as if a continent were in motion, and on either side there seemed to be a row of 1,000 men with lanterns. But the warrior was able to make out, as the danger drew nearer, that all this fuss was made by a single creature, an enormous centipede over a mile long, and that what had seemed like men with lanterns on either side of it were in reality its own feet, of which it had exactly 1,000 on each side of its body, all of them glistening and glinting with the sticky poison that oozed out of every pore. There was no time to be lost. The centipede was already halfway down the mountain. So the warrior snatched up his bow, a bow so big and heavy that it would have taken 5 ordinary men to pull it, fitted an arrow into the bow notch, and let fly. He was not one ever to miss his aim. The arrow struck right in the middle of the monster's forehead. But alas, it rebounded as if that forehead had been made of brass. A second time did the warrior take his bow and shoot. A second time did the arrow strike and rebound. And now the dreadful creature was down to the water's edge, and would soon pollute the lake with its filthy poison. Said the warrior to himself, Nothing kills centipedes so surely as human spittle. And with these words he spat onto the tip of the only arrow that remained to him, for there had been but 3 in his quiver. This time again the arrow hit the centipede right in the middle of its forehead, but instead of rebounding, it went right in and came out again at the back of the creature's head, so that the centipede fell down dead, shaking the whole countryside like an earthquake, and the poisonous light on its 2,000 feet darkening to a dull glare like that of the twilight of a stormy day. Then the warrior found himself wafted back to his own castle, and round him stood a row of presents, on each of which were inscribed the words, "From your grateful dwarf." One of these presents was a large bronze bell, which the warrior, who was a religious man as well as a brave one, hung up in the temple that contained the tombs of his ancestors. The second was a sword, which enabled him ever after to gain the victory over all his enemies. The third was a suit of armor, which no arrow could penetrate. The fourth was a roll of silk, which never grew smaller, though he cut off large pieces from time to time to make himself a new court dress. The fifth was a bag of rice, which, though he took from it day after day for meals for himself, his family, and his trusty retainers, never got exhausted as long as he lived. And it was from this fifth and last present that he took his name and title of My Lord Bag o' Rice, for all the people thought that there was nothing strange in the whole world than this wonderful bag, which made its owner such a rich and happy man. The end.
What is the lesson of the story? The lesson of the story is fairness and being wise. The Raha in the story is not so wise because he leaves rice for a tragedy known as famine, and when it goes on, he doesn't even give the rice to the people.
One prominent lesson that I get in the story of my Lord Bag o' Rice is the value of kindness and selflessness. The tale emphasized the idea that generosity and compassion can bring unexpected reward and create sense of community and goodwill.
According to the moral of this story, one needs to be able to face life with courage. Whether he is battling the centipede or navigating the terrifying dragon, Hidesito demonstrates bravery in every action he takes throughout the story. These essential actions enabled him to persevere through his life's challenges. The story's other elements exaggerate the idea that bravery is essential. The Dragon King makes the clear observation that no other traveler had ventured to pass, suggesting that their decision to overcome their fear prevented them from achieving true prosperity. Not only that, but the Dragon King and his family merely shook with terror as Hidesito bravely battled the centipede. Considering that the centipede had previously made appearance on other nights, we can assume that the Dragon King was possibly acting in this manner. Therefore, we see a portrayal of cowardice leading to hopelessness and, in the worst situations, death in the form of the Dragon King. This story places a great deal of emphasis on Hidesito's bravery and considering how hard life was in the past. It makes sense that encouraging bravery would be necessary to survive.
As an individual, one can draw several lessons from the Japanese creator My Lord Bag o' Rice. Bravery and determination. Hidesoto amplifies the virtue of bravery and determination despite the challenge and warnings. He persists in his quest to help villagers and confront the giant centipede. This can inspire individuals to challenge head-on and pursuit of noble goals. And humility and selflessness. Hidesoto's choice of a simple bag of rice as reward highlights his humility and lack of materialistic desire. This can serve as lesson on the valuing qualities such as humility and selflessness over the pursuit of wealth and recognition. This story suggests that true heroism is not driven by personal gain but a genuine desire to assist others. The last is testing of character. The revelation that the old man was deity testing Hidesoto's character underscores the importance of moral integrity. Individuals can learn that their action, especially in the face of challenge, reveals their true character and virtue behind